Seacoast Oldies on 104.3 FM and seacoastoldies.com from the Shades of Maine studio, featuring the $9.99 Seafood Monthly Dinner Special. Shades of Maine, the best.
Shake, what are you doing? Shake it up, baby, now. This is the word. Wow. Heavy on the ass. Yeah.
The fact that the government was profiting off of it, normally you would get compensated. They kept it all on the down low. They did. I can tell Glenn's chomping at the bit. Yes, sir.
I am chomping at the bit because that is such a good point, and there's two things off of that. In a drug trial, if they did this, this is why you can't have the government involved in any of this. If this was a drug trial, and the government was the referee, which is all they're supposed to be, what would happen? They didn't inform you. You would have a lawsuit, and this would never happen again because Moderna would be out of business. The government would make sure of it, you'd win in court, okay? But because the government is involved, it doesn't go anywhere. Because they're the police, they're the judge, they're the jury, all right? The second thing is, unlike a public-private partnership,
This is word. It's a coconut raspberry milkshake. Chocolate raspberry mint. No, it's a kind of protein shake I make. Chocolate raspberry mint. Because it's delicious. So good for us.
Seacoast Oldies station.
Alexa, volume 6. I hope so. What's that? Alexa, volume 4. The comment I made to Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think that's great at all. I thought that was a nice comment. Well, she made a post. I just commented on her post. They're getting ready to go in for her husband's surgery. Yeah, I thought that was a nice response to that. It was, I wished her congratulations. Why is that mean? You think that's mean and threatening? How is that mean and threatening? Well, I beg to differ. Higher minds disagree. Sorry. Yeah, well, I'm so sorry that you're offended by that, or you might feel threatened, or that that's mean. We think it's mean and very threatening and abusive and inhumane, the child abuse they're ignoring. Yeah, they never want to look at it because the punks that are going around doing their investigations and getting the non-vaxxers and the bullies and the white supremacists, right? Yeah, when their punks do sick shit, sometimes that happens. And they never want to look at it, and they try to cover up for them and prove that the targets are evil people. Oh, cartel associations, shoplifting. I mean, you can pile up murder charges. It does not justify what those sick punks do to those kids. That's why they choose retards and criminals and problems that people want to get rid of. Yeah, wake the fuck up. So hopefully the proper authorities here in Augusta, Maine do what they're supposed to do to help the children. Time for you to wake up, chickadee. Yeah, hopefully. If I were you nasty fucking cunts, I would pack your shit and get the fuck out of here. Just saying. It's a friendly suggestion. Did you hear what we said? Yeah, so regardless, okay, the facts are the facts, and how you've been trying to justify the targeting is even sicker. It just actually goes to show people how they've been getting away with it. So by trying to justify what you've been doing to us has only been showing people just how fucking sick you are and how these motherfuckers have been getting away with it. For years, this has been a business for quite a while. Right, Mr. Jones? Alexa, volume 6, please. safe. We're gonna read a little bit from the American Spirit.
The Seacoast Melody Station.
Yeah, we like that book. It's a beautiful day. Alexa, volume 1, please. Thank you. Page 822. Franklin D. Roosevelt and neutrality. Page 822, congratulations. The epidemic of world lawlessness is spreading. There must be positive endeavors to preserve peace. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1937. Prologue. The same depression that generated the New Deal at home accelerated the rise of power-hungry dictators abroad. Hitler, Mussolini, and the Japanese warlords. Congress tried to insulate the nation from the imminent world war by arms embargoes and other presumed safeguards. But when Hitler attacked Poland in 1939, the American people found themselves torn between two desires. They wanted to avoid involvement, but they feared for their future security if they did not get involved to the extent of bolstering the democracies. Under Roosevelt's prodding, Congress repealed the arms embargo in 1939, and the administration gradually took a series of steps which removed any pretense of neutrality. Most Americans, but not the die-hard isolationist, most Americans, but not the die-hard isolationists, were willing to risk hostilities in an effort to help the democracies and halt the aggressors. Roosevelt took the gamble but lost when a shooting war developed with Germany in the Atlantic, and when Japan struck a devastating aerial blow at Pearl Harbor. The Arms Embargo Debate, Section A, Part 1. Senator Connally rejects rigidity. 1935. By the mid-1930s, Hitler was on the rise in Germany and Mussolini was on the loose in Ethiopia. An apprehensive American public was determined to legislate itself out of the next world war by a straitjacket neutrality law. A special Senate investigation launched in 1934 and headed by the notoriety-seeking Senator Nye had left the impression that the manufacturers of arms had dragged America into World War I. If Congress would only embargo munitions, the nation would, on paper, keep out of World War II. Senator Connally, the long-haired, string-tied Texan orator who headed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, showed himself unswayed by this logic in the following speech. Determine whether the proposed neutrality legislation provided for true neutrality. It is an expression of neutrality to say to two warring nations, one of which has ambitions for territorial conquest, the other unprepared, the other weak, the other trying to pursue its own destiny. Is it neutral to say to those nations, we shall give arms to neither of you, thereby ensuring the triumph of the prepared nation, the covetous nation, the ambitious nation, the nation which seeks by force of arms to impose its will on a weaker and defenseless nation? Mr. President, this is not neutrality. This is a form of unneutrality.
That is a form of declaration which announces that the United States will take the side of the strong and powerful against the weak, the unprepared, and the defenseless. Why not leave that determination to the President of the United States when and if his conduct of our foreign relations, it becomes a sound American policy for him to take a position in a crisis of that kind? We can now put the United States into an international straitjacket and thereby keep out of war. We cannot, by an act of Congress, put the United States into a concrete cast internationally, which will fit all future occasions and solve all future problems. Section 2. Roosevelt pleads for repeal, 1939. Despite Connolly's urging, the Arms Embargoing Neutrality Acts of 1935 and 1937 made no distinction between aggressor and victim. When Hitler wantonly launched World War II in September 1939, the United States could not legally sell munitions to the unprepared democracies, even though American sentiment and self-interest both cried aloud for aid to Britain and France. A worried Roosevelt summoned Congress into special session and made the following dramatic appeal. He was wrong on two counts. First, the arms embargo and purely domestic legislation was not a departure from long-established international law. Second, the Jeffersonian Embargo and Non-Intercourse Acts did not cause the War of 1812. They came within a few days of averting it. From conclusions as to Roosevelt's techniques as a politician and as to the most dangerous loophole in the existing legislation. Beginning with the foundation of our constitutional government in the year 1789, the American policy in respect to belligerent nations, with one notable exception, has been based on international law. The single exception was the policy adopted by this nation during the Napoleonic Wars, when, seeking to avoid involvement, we acted for some years under the so-called embargo and non-intercourse acts. That policy turned out to be a disastrous failure, first because it brought our own nation close to ruin, and second because it was the major cause of bringing us into active participation in European wars, in our own War of 1812. It is merely reciting history to recall to you that one of the results of the policy of embargo and non-intercourse was the burning in 1814 of part of this capital in which we are assembled. Our next deviation by statute from the sound principles of neutrality and peace through international law did not come for 130 years. It was the so-called Neutrality Act of 1935, only 4 short years ago. An act continued in force, short or long, yes. An act continued in force by the joint resolution of May 1st, 1937, despite grave doubts expressed as to its wisdom by many senators and representatives, and by officials charged with the conduct of our foreign relations, including myself. I regret that the Congress passed the act. I regret equally that I signed the act. On July 14th of this year, I asked the Congress, in the cause of peace and in the interest of real American neutrality and security, to take action to change the act, to change that act. I now ask again that such action be taken in respect to that part of the act which is wholly inconsistent with ancient precepts of the law of nations, the arms embargo provisions. I ask it because they are, in my opinion, most vitally dangerous to American neutrality, American security, and American peace. These embargo provisions, as they exist today, prevent the sale to a belligerent by an American factory of any completed implements of war. But they allow the sale of many types of uncompleted implements of war, as well as all kinds of general material and supplies. They furthermore allow such products of industry, for example copper, and agriculture, such as cotton, to be taken in American flagships to belligerent nations. There, in itself, under the present law, lies definite danger to our neutrality of our peace. Section 3, Senator Vandenberg fights repeal, 1939. Senator Arthur H. Vandenberg of Michigan, voluble orator, longtime newspaperman, and author of books on Alexander Hamilton, was a leader of the Republican isolationists and a serious contender for the presidential nomination in 1940. Later in 1945, he underwent a spectacular conversion to internationalism and rose to heights of statesmanship in supporting the Marshall Plan for the rehabilitation of post-war Europe. While fighting against the repeal of the arms embargo in 1939, he wrote in his diary that he deplored Roosevelt's treacherous and cowardly idea that America could be half and half out of this war. Hating Hitlerism, he felt that the manly course would be to go in or to stay out, and he much preferred to stay out. In his speech in the Senate against the repeal of the arms embargo, note what he regarded as both unneutral and unethical, and comment critically on his views. Mr. President, I believe this debate symbolically involves the most momentous decision in the eyes of America and of the world that the United States Senate has confronted in a generation. In the midst of foreign war and the alarms of other wars, we are asked to depart basically from the neutrality which the American Congress has twice told the world since in 1935 would be our rule of conduct in such an event. We are particularly asked to depart from it through the repeal of existing neutrality law establishing an embargo on arms, ammunition, and implements of war. We are asked to depart from it in violation of our own officially asserted doctrine during the First World War that the rules of a neutral cannot be prejudicially altered in the midst of a war. We are asked to depart from international law itself, as we ourselves have officially declared it to exist. Consciously or otherwise, but mostly consciously, we are asked to depart from it in behalf of one belligerent whom our personal sympathies largely favor, and against another belligerent whom our personal feelings largely condemn. In my opinion, this is the road that may lead us to war, and I will not voluntarily take it. The proponents of the change vehemently insist that their steadfast purpose, like ours, is to keep America out of war, and their sincere assurances has presented to our people. But the motive is obvious, and the inevitable interpretation of the change, inevitably invited by the circumstances, will be that we have officially taken sides. Somebody will be fooled. Either the America which is assured that the change is wholly pacific, or our foreigners who believe it is the casting of our die. Either of these disillusionments would be intolerable. Each is ominous, yet someone will be fooled, either those at home who expect much, or those abroad who will get too little. There is no such hazard. At least our own America, in preserving neutrality in the existing law precisely as we almost unanimously notified the world, was our intention as recently as 1935 and 1937. There is no such jeopardy, at least to our own America, and maintaining the arms embargo as it is. No menace, no jeopardy to us thus be persuasively conjured. Therefore, millions of Americans and many members of Congress can see no reason for the change, but infinite reason to the contrary. if neutral detachment is our sole objective. I am one who deeply holds this view. If I err, I want to err on America's side. Despite such pleas, the arms embargo was repealed early in November 1939. The vote was 55 to 24 in the Senate, 243 to 172 in the House. The intervention issue. Lindenberg argues for isolation, 1941. After France fell to Hitler in 1940, the embattled British stood alone. American interventionalists called for a helping hand to Britain. The isolationists called for hands off. The isolationist America First group proclaimed, "We have nothing to fear from a Nazi European victory." Boyish-faced, curly-haired Colonial Charles A. Lindenberg, who had narrowed the Atlantic with his historic solo flight in 1927, stressed the width of the ocean in his new role as a leading isolationist orator. After inspecting Germany's aircraft facilities in 1938, he shortly maintained that Hitler, who decorated him, could never be conquered in the air. If Lindenberg proved so wrong in an area in which he was a specialist, form some judgment as to the assessment of America's strategic position that he made in this speech before New York Mass in April 1941. Decide also to what extent interventionism was undemocratic. Assuming that Lindenberg's figures were correct, was his analysis of public opinion trustworthy? We have weakened ourselves for many months, and still worse, we have divided our own people by this dabbling in Europe's wars. While we should have been concentrating on American defense, we have been forced to argue over foreign quarrels. We must turn our eyes in faith back to our own country before it is too late. And when we do this, a different vista opens before us. It's a little depiction here. New neutrality legislation. Dual crisis required drastic action. Philadelphia Inquirer, 1939. It's a little cartoon they put in the Philadelphia Inquirer, 1939. It's European events holding a gun to one side of the head. Ascetic events holding a gun to the other. Asciatic, A-S-I-A-T-I-C, sciatic. And then it says a neutrality law that will keep us out of war. Practically every difficulty we would face in invading Europe becomes an asset to us in defending America. Our enemy, and not we, would then have the problem of transporting millions of troops across the ocean and landing them on a hostile shore. They, and not we, would have to furnish the convoys to transport guns and trucks and munitions and fuel across 3,000 miles of water. Our battleships and submarines would then be fighting close to their home bases. We would then do the bombing from the air, the torpedoing at sea, and if any part of an enemy convoy should ever pass our Navy and our Air Force, they would still be faced with the guns of our coast artillery, and behind them the divisions of our army. The United States is better situated from a military standpoint than any other nation in the world. Even in our present condition of unpreparedness, no foreign power is in a position to invade us today. If we concentrate on our own defenses and build the strength that this nation should maintain, no foreign army will ever attempt to land on American shores. War is not inevitable for this country. Such a claim is defeatism in the true sense. No one can make us fight abroad unless we ourselves are willing to do so. No one will attempt to fight us here if we arm ourselves as a great nation should be armed. Over 100 million people in this nation are opposed to entering the war. If the principles of democracy mean anything at all, that is reason enough for us to stay out. If we are forced into a war against the wishes of an overwhelming majority of our people, we will have proved democracy such a failure at home that there will be little use fighting for it abroad. The time has come when those of us who believe in an independent American destiny must band together and organize for strength. We have been led toward war by a minority of our people. This minority has power. It has influence. It has a loud voice, but it does not represent the American people. During the last several years, I have traveled over this country from one end to the other. I have talked to many hundreds of men and women, and I have letters from tens of thousands more who feel the same way as you and I. Public opinion polls during these months showed contradictory desires. A strong majority of the American people wanted to stay out of war, but a strong majority favored helping Britain even at the risk of war. The Lend-Lease Act of 1941 received about 2-to-1 support in the public opinion polls, and more than that in the congressional voting.
Yeah, understanding. Yeah, trafficking and migration lines. I suppose it only made sense to some and didn't make sense to others. Some said they've been, attacking on our own soil for years, over-medicating people to the point where they're killing each other. Let them kill each other. I know. And I mean, there's whole groups of people who profit from that. It's just evil upon evil upon evil. But thank goodness there's a lot of good. We like to think that the good outweighs the evil, and that even those who are blindly or knowingly doing evil things or protecting evil things. That's why we explain the chop shop scenario quite a bit. Gucci bags and sunglasses, Converse shoes, massage parlors, Mexican restaurants, Chinese food. Can I get the burrito? Right, so sometimes maybe a cashier is doing something wrong. Maybe in one of the chop shops, one of the boys in the back is fucking the kids. And they're making child and animal pornography, and they're feeding it out to these activist groups associated to militant groups, pretty powerful and rich activist groups, many here right in the good old state of Maine, where for years people have been saying, what the fuck is going on in Maine? Mills. Right, and then when they're all involved with this transgender bullshit, and when we told you folks back in 2010, that sick fuck next door with my children, how they were spreading the Jew hate, specifically Hasidic Jew hate. Hasidic Jew hate, specifically. And the transgender bullshit. And the Black Lives Matter bullshit. Pointing out the white supremacists. I don't remember when he took a picture of my dad holding that potato gun. I know it's all fun and games and like just a joke, but when they're sending that to their little friends down south and their nasty fucking hag activist friends that love their dogs more than they love people, and they're already pissed at these old fucks from Whitefield who left the dogs out in the cold back in the 90s. Child molesters, drug trafficking. I know they're already fucking pissed. Investigating our family. They put my brother's name in the paper in 2009. Right, and then when they get my sisters on board playing their fucking games and doing their little investigations and teaching the bullies a lesson, getting the dangerous shoplifters. Right, so you're all justified. That's all very important. You got to make sure you take care of the schizos and the dangerous people. That's for fucking sure. So the private investigator was trying to tell people how dangerous these sick fucks are, and how a lot of them were getting revenge from shit back in the 90s and early 2000s when a lot of their drugs and marketing schemes were being exposed. Some with that fundraising company, East Coast Marketing. Yeah, I'd wake the fuck up if I were you. So we have kids here at the Governor Hill Mansion that have already been fucked and tortured for years by these punks, teaching us hicks and white supremacists and cartel people a lesson for y'all. So if you got a fucking problem with how I speak, or that I tell you you're a piece of fucking shit, that's too fucking bad. The proper authorities here in Augusta, Maine need to wake the fuck up and help these kids. Michael Scott Garand, born 6/22/1984, we're right here at the Governor Hill Mansion in Augusta, Maine. Now, the folks here protecting him are very confused and have been hoodwinked by their own fucking daughters, and they don't want to believe it, and they jumped on board teaching the little brat a lesson, huh? You sick fucks. So I really hope the proper authorities here in Augusta, Maine do what they're supposed to do to help these kids. Do you understand what the fuck we're saying? All right, much love, health, and peace, everybody. We're going to go to reading class again. Yeah, I'm enjoying the reading. My reading voice feels strong today. We might we're going to have our protein shake first and do some stretches. Then we'll go to reading class. All right, thank you. You're welcome.